This is the LSE Higher Programme Department of Social Policy Behavioural Public Policy Seminar for this month. And we've got one of the superstars of behavioural economics and philosophy, you name it. Bob told me once, actually, that once he becomes a real sort of top expert in a field, he didn't say that himself, but once he becomes a real top expert in a field, he moves on to another field, because he's he's not only a contractarian, he's also a contrarian. So he starts arguing with everybody in the field that he's already become a leader in and goes somewhere else. So Bob and Bruce are going to, I don't know how you two are going to split it today, but Bruce Lyons, also from University of East Anglia, is here, and Bob and Bruce wrote a paper together, or Bruce and Bob wrote a paper together that looks at the issue of transactional fairness. So that's the topic for today. Just to remind you all of the structure of these things, the lead presenters are meant to sort of summarize their ideas in 15 or 20 minutes or so, and then we hand over the rest of the hour for comments and questions from the floor. So with that, I'm just going to hand over to Bob and Bruce then, and you two can decide how you...
Well, yes, well, I was going to present it, but Bruce is there to join in and answer questions and so on. Okay, well, we say a title, Regulating Against Unfair Trading Practices Directed at Behavioural Consumers. And the starting point for this thought is, well, there's a lot of public concern about the unfairness of trading practices that have become common in consumer markets. And I mean, a few examples there. I mean, price walking or the loyalty penalty, the idea of the insurance companies that each year your premium increases by a little bit more than the sort of norm, and the hope is you don't notice and keep reassigning yourself. Bill shock or shrouded attributes is having add-ons that you have a low headline price and you keep add-on. Then you have a lot of add-ons that people can't avoid, but they don't realize it in advance. And something that's famous in Amazon, the hindrances to contract cancellation. You make it difficult to leave a contract when you start. And I think actually these practices have been really going on. Most of them have been in some form or other going on as long as there's been traders, and particularly with door-to-door salesmen. But the digitalization of markets has made it possible to sort of use these practices more widely. Well, this concern about unfairness is shared by influential economists, and here I've got 3 Nobel Prize winners, are all saying that they think that these practices are undermining the traditional justifications for competitive markets. They're leading you to be skeptical about markets. So Ackloff and Schiller, well, this is just the blurb of their book. The blurb says, Nobel Prize winning economists, George Ackloff and Robert Schiller, delivered a fundamental challenge to the Adam Smith insight, arguing that markets harm as well as help us. As long as there's profit to be made, sellers will systematically exploit our psychological weaknesses and our ignorance through manipulation and deception. So the first one is systematically exploiting psychological weaknesses through manipulation and systematically exploiting ignorance through deceptions. Markets are inherently... Sorry?
Just quickly, do you mean to have your slides up for so people can see them, or are you just leaving it discursive?
So, sorry, they're not being seen.
I'm not seeing.
You didn't. Yeah, your slides are not up, Bob. I thought you were going to be discursive as well, but you can put your slides up. They're not up. No.
Are they not visible?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, sorry. Let me just see how to get back to that then. Sorry, I thought that was end show. Let me just see how to get back to that. Get back to Zoom. Oh dear, this is terrible. Zoom. Okay, now we're here. Now, if I go to share, where's share screen? Oh, here we go, share screen. Share screen, entire screen. And then I think if I go to here, oh dear, I can't see the share screen.
There we go. It's coming up.
Now if I go to here.
I think I'm there, aren't I? Am I on everybody's screen now?
Is that right? Now and I go to concurrent slide. Is that now seen?
Yeah, that's on. I think it's on my screen. I'm assuming that it's on everybody else's screen as well.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, right. I'm sorry. So this unfairness is shared by these Nobel Prize winners. And I say, here's what Accolk and Schiller are saying: markets are inherently filled with tricks and traps that will fish us as fools. And Thaler, he's summing up nudging, and he says you need to distinguish between conscientious choice architects who nudge for good and sludge. And what is sludge? Sludge is marketing nudges by firms, which, well, that should have been read as well. What are the firms doing? They encourage buyers in order to maximize profits rather than to improve the buyer's welfare. Now, our question is, how should regulators respond to this concern? And it's very important to the argument, this is regulators and not governments. A market regulator, the CMA, the FCA, Ofgem, Ofcom, these are non-political authorities with very specific objectives. And roughly they're what they put on their homepage. As CMA says, we help people, businesses and the UK economy by promoting competitive markets and tackling unfair behaviour. The FCA, we're committed to protecting consumers, enhancing market integrity and promoting competition in the interests of consumers. So it's clear here that the core objectives are really two. It's promoting competitive markets and protecting consumers against unfair trading practices. And if you look at that in the perspective of neoclassical economics, these two objectives are incongruent. The thought is consumers search for the lowest prices, fair competition keeps the prices low for everyone, and unfair practice are hindering a mechanism which is working to keep prices low. But this congruence can break down if consumers are behavioural. Now here's one interesting example which sort of brings out, think of this bill shock or shrouded attributes thought. We have a firm, it's offering a service contract, think of a bank, say, or indeed or a hotel. It's got a service contract, it's got a low below cost price for its core component. Then it has a schedule of charges for add-ons that consumers can incur while they're using the service, and they don't have to pay for at the moment, they get billed for afterwards. And so the bill shock, the shrouding is the fact that they don't realize that these add-ons are going to arise until they suddenly appear, and the bill shock is the shock you get when you find the bill. Say late payment fees, unarranged overdraft charges, high prices for using a mobile phone above a fixed threshold. And in behavioral economics, they often make a distinction between the savvies and the naïves. The savvies are the consumers who have the correct beliefs and act rationally, and so they can avoid the add-ons and they can benefit from this low below cost headline price. The naïves, they have either incorrect beliefs or they're susceptible to psychological mechanisms that the neoclassical theory ignores. That long phrase is to avoid using the word errors and biases. The naïves incur the add-ons, either not reading the small print or inattention at later stage. Now, the interesting thing about this is, suppose you have a market with zero fixed costs and no barriers to entry. This is a rational, profit maximizing pricing strategy for firms to use, given that they are both savvies and naïves. But in equilibrium, the firms make zero profit because their profits are competed away. So the savvies are being cross-subsidized by the naïves, and there's quite a lot of papers written about this. Now, the question is this unfair? And if so, why? Well, think of the simplest case. There's an add-on that the firms can supply at zero incremental cost. The naïves don't anticipate the possibility of incurring it, and the attentive consumers can evade it at a zero cost. Think of a hotel which perhaps has decided doesn't supply soap to the but it says, oh, you can buy your soap, but it's at a very expensive price. The naïves don't realize this, and then they end up having to pay the high price for the soap. The attentive consumers stick some soap into their bags, and so don't have to pay it. Now, when they're deciding whether to enter the contract, deciding whether to go to the hotel, the savvies and the naïves are both expecting to buy the core component and pay the headline price. So it's as if the firms are selling their service at a below cost price, and then just making up the loss by an arbitrary levy on the naives. Now, the problem is in standard welfare economic analysis, and this is not only in neoclassical, but also in behavioural economics, this is a pure transfer from the naives to the savvies. So there might be an inefficiency because everyone's over consuming the core service because they're buying it at an unnecessary, at an artificially low price, but that seems to be irrelevant to the fairness issue. So it seems as though in standard economic terms, the fairness reduces to income distribution. Maybe the naives are cash-rich, time-poor consumers who can afford to be inattentive. So could well be this is welfare increasing, really. It's transferring from the poor to the rich. What about vulnerability? Well, even then, here's my example, our example of vulnerability. Think of, here we've got Arthur, who's 85 years old, a bit closer to me, has got a good index-linked pension, poor short-term memory, occurs these add-ons through forgetfulness. There's Bella, she's a 30-year-old low-income single mother. She takes care when she uses a bank account. In the end, this pricing practice is transferring income from Arthur to Bella. In distributional terms, this is probably still welfare increasing. Arthur's not short of money, Bella is. But many people would say this is still unfair. The shrouded attributes are unfair, and not just because of the vulnerable consumers, whatever the reason Arthur is distracted by. But if you think like this, the unfairness is in the transaction between Arthur and the bank. The fact that Bella is the ultimate beneficiary and the bank doesn't make any profit isn't really the point. The point is that the question is the bank treating Arthur unfairly? Now, you say, well, okay, next question is, well, should regulators be concerned about this? Because an economist could well say, look, well, economics has got a coherent method of normative analysis, which is all based on distribution efficiency. It shows that these shrouded add-ons are welfare improving. Why is that unfair? If people think that they're unfair, that's just because they don't understand economics. Well, we don't agree with that. We think that regulators ought to be concerned. Why ought they be concerned? Well, the first one comes back to what I said in one of the very early slides. The regulator's got a duty. The duty is to promote competition and uphold fairness in market transactions. It's not there to maximize welfare. Maybe the government, maybe a legitimate function of the government to try to redistribute income. But that's not what the regulator's duty is. It's to promote competition and uphold fairness. And when it says fairness, when the legislation says fairness, when they put on their website, we're upholding fairness, they're using that in an ordinary everyday language sense. Should be respecting ordinary understandings of what the concept means. Second thought is, well, in fact, it's in a democracy, you're going to end up with market regulation is going to be influenced by citizens' judgments. So it's quite likely that, in fact, regulation is going to get influenced by citizens' conceptions of fairness. So it's important to codify those. And third thought is, if practice is seen as unfair, well, indeed, this is exactly the point of Akerlof and Schiller in a way. Well, Akerlof and Schiller and Thaler are all part of this. Practices are seen as unfair, undermining trust, not only in the firms that use them, but in other firms in the same market, in regulation, the market system in general. So allowing practices that are generally seen as unfair is undermining the stability of the market system, which is actually a legitimate function of regulators. And it's particularly dangerous when trust is part of the product, as in financial services. Okay, so now the question is the behavioural, typical sort of behavioural economics. Should we be defining fairness in relation to individuals' true preferences? Well, behavioural economics routinely uses these concepts of true preferences and bias, and we all know about nudges, and Adam knows all about budges. I've told you all about them. These are typically justified on the grounds that they de-bias individual decisions, i.e. they remove the effects of mechanisms, psychological mechanisms, that are interposing between true preferences and decisions. And that's where Akerlof and Schiller are coming in, exploiting psychological weaknesses, and Thaler on his getting rid of sludge. The question is, how far should fair transactions be defined by the absence of bias? Well, if you were at a previous Hayek seminar, I presented this paper by Gerardo Infante, Guillem Lacuta, and myself about preference purification. And the central argument of that paper, so I want to repeat it again, but just to summarize it, the thought is, well, the fact that revealed preferences are context dependent is an empirical hypothesis, and it's well established as true, and it's well explained by psychological theory. But the concept of true preference is not empirical, it's not grounded in psychology, it's a superstructure. And this is where, again, the distinction between the government and the regulator comes in. A democratically elected government can legitimately base its policy intervention on its judgments about individual welfare. Well, as it's doing at this very moment, or Parliament's doing this very moment, with restricting the sale of cigarettes and vapes. And that, I mean, when I've been criticizing nudging and budging, and my criticism is what's the lack of an official criterion for it, using a false criterion for it. But this is not a suitable role for market regulators. Regulators need a concept of transactional fairness, which doesn't refer to true preference. Just to remind you that we're not saying that transactional fairness is the only criterion that they should use. Efficiency and distribution are perfectly intelligible, sensible objectives, but transactional fairness is one of the criteria that we think they should be using. Okay, so what's our proposal? Well, here's I don't know if it's the bottom line. This is how we officially state it. Transactional fairness. So this is what we're claiming. It's a definition of transactional fairness, and it's the suggestion that our proposal, our recommendation is that regulators should use this as a standard of fairness. Transactional fairness requires that a firm acts in such a way that consumers with normal expectations, and there's the footnote there tells it is, consumers with normal expectations about consumer offers in the relevant market are able to understand the consequence of transacting with that firm. That's no deception. And the consumers with normal expectations are not hindered from terminating a relationship with the firm or from transacting with alternative sellers. Example of terminating a relationship with the firm is the Amazon Prime thing, where it's very easy to sign up. It's very easy to join the system. It's all too easy. But if you want to leave it, it's actually extremely difficult. So that would be hindering people from engaging in the market. And the exploding offer idea of giving people offers that are only valid for a very short time, such a sufficiently short time they can't inspect the alternatives, that also is a hindrance. So no deception, no hindrance. And then the clause: if the transaction involves a consumer with observably impaired capacity to understand the consequences or to search for alternative offers, fairness further requires the firm does not knowingly exploit this. So that's our definition of transactional fairness. It's intended as an action guiding ethical standard for firms. We're wanting the regulators to endorse it as a standard of fairness, and it's supposed to be they're supposed to be communicating this to firms. Firms should understand that this is what they're expected to do, and so it's an action guiding ethical standard for firms. And as an aid to compliance, we propose an additional requirement or challenge, a kind of concept that sort of normative standard, you might say, the challenge of public explanation. A firm should be able to defend the rationale for its consumer trading practices, locating them within a business model based on mutual benefit between it and its customers, and be willing to present the rationale publicly. So the thought is, and particularly regulators should be entitled to ask the firm, we notice you're using this practice. It looks to us as though it might be deceptive. It might be a hindrance. Tell us why you're doing it. What's your reason for doing it? And they're perfectly entitled to say, "Oh, we're maximizing profit." That's what a firm is there to do, you might say. But if the honest explanation starts revealing deception or hindrance, then it's falling foul of this. And if their explanation it turns out to be extremely implausible because it's trying to avoid using the concepts of hindrance and deception, then again, it's exposing itself to criticism. And this public explanation is quite in the same spirit as an FCA guideline that I've always liked. So they say products and services marketed and sold in the retail market are, i.e. should be, designed to meet the needs of identified consumer groups and are targeted accordingly. In other words, if a firm is putting a product on the market and it's advertising it to a particular consumer group, then it should be designed to meet the needs of those consumer groups. And if you can't explain why the consumers would want to buy it, then it's grounds for suspicion. And just as an example, one that Bruce and I have been involved in recently, RPI plus 3.9%. This is very common, and it's certainly on mine. If you have a fixed term telecom contract, the term of the contract includes the sense that your price every year your price will increase by the retail price index plus 3.9%. Well, what's this? Well, there's plenty of evidence that consumers are not able to understand the consequence of transacting with the firm. I mean, so you think, well, how much is it going to cost me next year? You've got to guess what the retail price index is going to be. And then you have to multiply. Then you've got to add 3.9% on, and then you've got to multiply it by your existing price. So it's certainly an extremely complex way of describing prices. So the suspicion arises this is tacit deception. It's what it's doing is it's disguising a pricing increase. A bit like the shrouded add-ons. The shrouded add-on here is the fact that it goes up by 3.9% plus retail price index every year. But also it's one that, and that the fact that it's difficult to understand it suggests that it's deceptive because it's hiding its true offer terms. And Ofcom's proposal, I think it's quite a sensible proposal, as one thing it's proposing, is requirement that pounds and pence price descriptors. You must say your price this year is £15.90. Your price next year is £16.96. You know. So when the challenge of public explanation comes in, we say, well, why does the firm believe that this is mutually beneficial? Why does it believe it's benefiting its consumers? Why does it think the consumers would like them to price in this way? Well, a vaguely plausible argument for indexing will be if you indexed your prices to product price, to the indexing product price to input cost, you could say, well, we're engaged in long-term contracts, so we don't know, it's unknown how much input prices would go up. You know, what about Hoot is firing rockets at our oil tankers and container ships? Although it's a bit of a stretch to say that a large company should be better able to, you think a large company better able to form a guess about the retail price index and bear the risks of variation in it than consumers. So it doesn't sound a particularly plausible argument, but it is possible. Another one will be to say, well, everyone knows that, well, assume everyone knows that prices and wages tend to increase over time, and there's a sort of percentage rate called inflation. And so if the firm is looking for, if the idea is mutual benefit, you might say, well, you would expect the benefit to increase, the nominal value of the benefit of their service to increase over time, and it was roughly connected to the inflation. But why are they adding on 3.9%? Where's that come from? And there's a very legitimate suspicion here. The firm's exploiting consumers' expectations that prices normally rise as a percentage rate. So you think, well, they're using the consumer's general understanding of the concept of inflation to slip in a price increase, and by using a particularly complicated number, they're making it particularly difficult for them to decode this. And Bruce suggests, which I think might be true, Bruce knows more about regulators than I do, suggests that they're perhaps even sort of bluffing the regulators. Regulators are used to requiring firms to increase their prices by RPI minus some X to represent the technical improvements that the firm is supposed to be exploiting. So it's what it's doing. It seems as though it's it's concealing a price increase by passing it off, by associating the consumer's mind with other things which have got percentage increases. So we would say that is tacit deception. So sum up. This is our guiding principle. This is our sort of ethical principle, and it's I think the last paragraph of our paper. We say, what's the point of this? So let me just read it out. A fundamental role of a market regulator should be to uphold a coherent ethical conception of a well-functioning market as a network of mutually beneficial cooperative interactions. Viewed from the perspective of firms, this is a space in which each firm is free to seek profit by proposing transactions to consumers, provided it does so without deception and without hindering transactions in which it's not involved. Viewed from the perspective of consumers, such a market offers an array of opportunities for transactions that each individual is free to enter voluntarily, knowing what to expect and remaining free to leave. And that seems to me, at least, a very good ethical principle. So I'll stop there. Get back to my
Okay,
screen.
thanks, Bob. If you could just bring out your slides, that's great.
Sorry?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know why. Am I appearing on everybody's screen here?
Oh, sorry, stop. I may stop sharing. I think I've
stop sharing.
I'm seeing you, Adam.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Oh, it says you screen sharing. Stop sharing.
Oh, okay. It's because you're sharing me, that's why.
Is that right now?
You shouldn't share me with anybody, Bob. You should want me all for yourself.
No, that's right. Well, I think I'm not sharing it now. I don't think. I hope not.
No, that's great. That's great.
Okay, yeah.
I can see everybody now. I can see everybody. So we'll do things in the normal way. So if you've got a question for Bob or Bruce, Bruce will come in. I'll get if anybody asks a question, I'll just ask Bruce if he wants to add anything at all. Bruce, do you want to add anything to that at this stage?
Not really. Well, the one little detail about the hindrance in leaving. We don't say that fixed term contracts should be ruled out. So you know where that's fully expected and there's a value of having it, then that's fine. But it's the ones which are more of a hindrance by default, as it were.
Great, thanks, Bruce. Okay, I'll take the questions in the order in which they appeared on my screen. So Heidi, I think you'll go to your hand up first.
Hi, sorry, I can't have my camera on right now. Thanks, I really enjoyed that presentation. What was coming up for me as you were going through it has to do with ethical consumption and the issue of mergers and acquisitions. So what we have for many of our very large corporations in the United States is that they will often take a brand which is associated with particular ethic, whether that's sustainability or animal welfare or, fair trade, whatever it is. And then they will buy that, but it is completely invisible to the consumer now who is profiting from that purchase. And they may have issues with actually buying the product because either the production methods of that product might change, or even just the association with the corporation that is involved in practices that they consider unethical. So my question to you, they're exploiting that halo effect, basically, is what they're doing. Do you consider that deception? And if so, what is the duty of the regulators with regard to ethical consumption and these sorts of mergers and acquisitions?
I don't know. I would have thought the merger. I mean, the merger. It's not really an issue of merger acquisition, but what deception is trading on a misperception that you could have easily have prevented, so to speak. So I think if you're it's a little bit, in a way, it's a little bit analogous with what they call cheapflation or shrinkflation. So there, you've got a product that's repeatedly being repeatedly on sale, and so when the consumer goes to buy the fairy liquid, I just noticed the fairy liquid is suddenly reduced in size in its containers. You buy the one you always bought, and you're assuming that it's still got the same volume and or concentration it did before. And if they change that, and that will seem to me like it's a case where there could be reasonable regulation for saying you should signal for some time that the product has changed. Right? Now, I think what you're saying, I think seems right in the sense, if a product has been sort of traded on some kind of ethical concerns, then it does seem as though, well, I mean, maybe, I mean, I'm not sure about this, but it just seems as though you could argue that it's similar, that there ought to be some sort of notifications. Like if you say, well, when you change the nature of your product for the first, say, 6 months, you must label it as change, like with a new, exclamation mark. So maybe there's a case for saying new, we're no longer in a, well, you can't say no longer ethical firm, but we've been taken over by Unilever, like that. But I don't know. What do you think, Bruce?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a great question, but it seems quite clear to me. I mean, when it comes about by M&A, or it comes about by a change of CEO, or some other thing inside, if they're changing what the product brand is known for, without, and especially if that's some sort of less visible quality, so people go on with their normal expectations, then that is deceptive. You're no longer purchasing from small farmers in Colombia or whatever for your ethical sourcing, but you're knocking down rainforests to get it. And if that is what's going on, you're changing that policy. I see that as deceptive, especially if the brand is trading on that ethical branding.
Thanks, Hardy. Raghu.
Thank you. It was a very nice presentation. I have two questions. One, and forgive me if I interpret this wrong. It seems like the fairness that you're talking about is largely related to price and the transactional fairness, at least in the first part of it. So what about non-price fairness concerns? It probably is related to the previous question tangentially as well, as long as it doesn't affect the price, but it's still sort of deception, not disclosing certain aspects which are relevant for my consumption. The second bit is more slightly on the philosophical side, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. So this is related to the discussion that St. Thomas Aquinas has about the wheat farmers and the same situation interpreted by Cicero. And I think in one situation where you could see St. Thomas saying that you don't have to basically reveal to the public, which is consuming this wheat, which is at a higher price that you're selling. And he's saying you're not falling foul of justice. So it really then boils down to, when you say ethical, what kind of ethical framework? For him, he's coming from a theological framework, but Cicero says the opposite. But he's also ethical. So in this case, for example, you have two criterion: no deception, no hindrance. So if you take the example by St. Thomas Aquinas, where there is a drought-struck place, he's sort of asking whether there are other sellers who are coming in and the price is likely to fall, and do you have to tell the people that price is going to fall? So I think there's a temporal element to it as well, which is not clear to me whether that falls strictly under deception. So I was wondering whether is it a Cicero side that you're arguing for, or the St. Thomas Aquinas side? But it's probably...
that's a really, we were actually very interested in it. I mean, I was particularly interested in Thomas, and in that, historically speaking, I think that what's happening there is that Aquinas is writing at a time which is just there's the sort of beginnings of what you might call a commercial society. It's beginning, and he's got the job of defending church doctrine, and at the same time he's is realizing that actually there's markets out there, and actually they're quite, trading is actually quite a valuable activity, and he's trying to, and of course probably traders are sponsoring the church to some degree as well, so it doesn't, you've got to sort of be careful what you say. So I think it's a serious project he's involved in, and we agreed with Thomas Aquinas. I mean, and our reason for that was saying, well, we're saying transactional fairness is a relationship between the seller and the buyer, and information about the transaction itself, you shouldn't be hiding, but that there's the information about other people's prices that's not part of the transaction. But so there's part of that's part. I mean, Thomas Aquinas actually had kind of, if we can say, Jesuitical, but his arguments, his reasons were actually a little bit special pleading. That's part of the reason. Part of our reason is say, well, we're wanting to define transactional fairness as being relationship between what's the property of that transaction, and you're not expected to reveal what you know about other people's. But also the other thought is that. On the whole, we are, go back to my finishing slide. The whole of the ethic is trying to promote competitive markets that work for the good of people as they see it. And it wouldn't. I mean, if price competition is very important as a means of, as a part of how the market works. And if firms had to reveal their prices, reveal everyone else's prices, then it's not really a recipe for a market work. So actually it's a sort of proper, it has to be a property of the market that it's the consumer's job. It's the consumer's job to look out for the price, possibly assisted by regulators and assisted by publicity, but it's the consumer's job to find the best offer, and it's the firm's job to be honest about what it's offering, but it's not an obligation on it to tell people what other people are offering. And so basically we're agreeing with Thomas Aquinas.
Me next. Peter Johnny next.
Well,
yeah. Yes. I suppose, actually, forgive me because I did come in late, for my apologies. So I may not be getting the whole of what you're saying. But I suppose when I heard a lot of it, I kind of thought, my first thought is there a real kind of problem here, in the sense that when we read about all these kind of cases, they always kind of seem, well, sort of fairly obvious kind of breaches of trust and confidence. And it would seem to me that the regulator, it's not a massive dilemma. And often when we read these cases, we kind of surprised that regulators are not moving more faster and more ahead of the kind of markets and giving a lot of private sector organizations quite a lot of leeway before they actually do something. So I suppose my second thought was, if it's not obvious, then I think it's just kind of what you're saying, is it strikes me there's kind of two reasons why it not made obvious. One is just a issue of kind of practicality, that if you overregulate the market, it's going to make life so difficult to trade that it's going to strike out innovation in markets, product development, and those sorts of things. I suppose the second one, as I think it's kind of what you're getting at, and maybe you do correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is a kind of continuum, isn't there, between the obvious deceptions which people could not reasonably be able to find out, and ones where, although it might be a little bit deceptive, most reasonable people can work this out. I mean, one example I'm sort of thinking, I mean, slightly different area, but the issue of the very obvious kind of scam. And you have these kind of TV programs that showing these people have been scammed, and you're kind of thought, I mean, you do feel sorry for these people, and sometimes people get drawn in, but obviously there is, almost all people of all capacities could probably work out certain kinds of scams are kind of scams, and therefore to regulate them all is kind of over-regulation, and in some ways you kind of at some point want to hold your hands off and let people decide their fates. I mean, I suppose the question is how intuitive effectively is what you're saying, or are there lots of things which are effectively counterintuitive and therefore need really careful policing of those kind of grey areas? Sorry if that wasn't very clear.
No, okay. Do you want to say anything about
Bob,
Bruce?
shall I take this one?
Yeah, Bruce, you go.
Yeah, I mean, we're not claiming that it's completely different from everything that's being done out there. What we're trying to do is come at it from a direction. Regulators, naturally, because many of them have been taught through economics and welfare economics, try and force everything into a particular box. There are issues whereby sometimes what you say is absolutely obvious is extended to be doing things which are actually quite harmful, and sometimes things which take some time to find out about being obvious. I mean, let me do the so I'll give an example in a minute, but basically there's this we're trying to provide a clearer framework for a regulatory intervention which can appeal to underlying principles rather than just saying, oh, it's obvious, you know, this is bad, or it's obvious this is good, which is rather a lot of what goes on. It goes on in the media, but it also goes on to a more limited extent in regulators. And so, for instance, one of the regulators, I've forgotten which one right now, has banned all price discrimination. So there are no possibility of giving discounts to new customers. Now, you know, there's nothing we say which, or in our principles, which says you can't do price discrimination. We're looking at the relationship between the firm and that individual customer, not and all customers, and that's where the transactional fairness comes in. So if you ban all such sort of price discrimination, discounts for new customers, you lose the ability to help customers find out that you've got a really good product, because they won't, you know, they need to try before they pay the full price. And you're really actually undermining competition as well as another thing, because you can't try and take away a rival's customers who are a bit sticky.
Just
so the main issue I take is that things might be obvious to you individually, and other things are obvious to other people individually, or I think they are. But if they're unprincipled, I'm not accusing you of being an unprincipled person, but you get what I'm saying, then we can't all agree on what's good and what's bad. So, you know, that's, I think, what we're trying to do is narrow it down, focus, give some simple underlying principles.
The other thing I wanted to say was, I mean, I think that you're undoubtedly true that, I mean, something like deception is a continuum. There's bound to be a grey area, and regulators in a way can only be expected to deal with the most egregious ones. But I think this is where the challenge of public explanation comes in. That's not a kind of something you can absolutely regulate, but it does give you some sort of way of thinking about, you know, you look at this practice and say, well, is it deceptive? And you think, well, okay, is there a good reason? Could you know, we've got the concept of a market as a network of mutually beneficial transactions. It's up to the firm. The firm's free to propose whatever it likes to more or less within reason to consumers, and consumers can choose whether they want to go along with it. And then you see what the firm is doing, and you think, well, can it plausibly claim? And we ask it, can you give us a good explanation of why this isn't deceptive? And in order to say it's not deceptive, you need to be able to say, well, there are reasons why there are people out there who will want to buy this products. You know, so I think it is quite a useful help.
I'm going to bring Yuval in. Before I do that, apologies to you, Peter. I had my mute button on. I didn't realise it. I think I'm not going to ask you to respond to this, Bob or Bruce, but I think my budget, and I know you sort of critically made some critical allusions to the budget framework, but that framework I think is very, very close to your framework. It's just that I'm a little bit more open to the possibility that the sort of psychological affects can be used to sort of fuel forms of deception. So I think that's just where we differ a little bit. But I think we're actually very close together. But anyway, Yuval.
Hi. So very, very interesting. I wanted to ask, so you try to focus both on kind of deception and kind of biases, but whether the main problem is some sort of frustration of expectation. So you say something and people don't understand what you are saying, or let's say of many commercials where you use celebrity to affect the consumer choices. People know that the celebrity is doing it for money, but still we know from research that it's affecting people's choices, not in any, unrelated to the product, just because it's a celebrity, or you use other people to put them in near products and people buy them more. From a behavioral perspective, wouldn't you say this is kind of more of the contribution to consumer protection law, competition law, rather than just kind of rephrasing deception and frustration of expectations? I mean, I think sometimes those practices of marketing are much more effective in causing people to do things that they're not interested in doing than kind of not really using, I don't know, ambiguous word or deception. I mean, those things are, to me, seems to be a better regulated than actually what the more kind of permissible marketing practices.
Well, this is exactly what we're opposing, to be honest. I mean, it seems to me that this is the Thaler sludge thing. Oh, firms should nudge, they should only nudge for good. They can't nudge for profit. But seems I don't see how. I mean, the world is, everything in the world is involved in communication, persuasion, and so if you say that if you have a product and you want to sell it, how do you sell it? Well, all advertising. Oh, I mean, there's obviously just informative, just tell, but basically, all selling practices are to do with making your product look attractive. And I often say, I mean, one thing I like to say to people, so imagine there's two restaurants on the street, and one is the commercial restaurant, and they say, well, we try to make our food items tasty. We put them on the table. We like to make our table settings look nice because we know that makes you feel better. We like our waiters and waitresses to be smartly dressed, and we like to keep the tables tidy and all. And we like to we decorate our cakes so they look particularly attractive to eat. And that's the one. The other one is the Sunstein Thaler cafeteria. When you go in, it's just for mica tables, and you just check. You just ask them. No, there's no attempt to make the product look nice. There's no attempt to sort of lure in. And I would have thought, well, I wouldn't want to go to Thaler Sunstein. And everything in the market. So the market is about. I mean, the innovative nature of the market is about people finding products that people want to buy and presenting them the way that people want to buy them. And I think the whole idea of trying to calling it deception to make your products look attractive, and thought that, see, this comes back to this psychological bias. This is exactly the point of the original paper, that there isn't a concept of true preference. At least I don't think there is. I don't think you can't say when you've got your nice influencer who appears on the other, you can't. There isn't a true preference this person's got. It's just it's a context. So what I just don't think that there's a way of defining what the true preference is that for a basis of deception. It's not deception, it's influence. But so I would say influence, making a product attractive, associating it with, you say, perhaps you see an advert for a Volkswagen car, and you don't see it you don't see it being driven by an old man like me through a traffic jam in Norwich. You see it some attractive young man, attractive young woman driving this car through the Alps, you know, and that makes you think, oh, you know, when you see a Volkswagen car, it's supposed to trigger thoughts of driving through the Alps with a nice girl at their side. That's life, I think. So I think the answer is no, definitely not. This isn't certainly not the regulator's job.
Pete.
I think maybe my question follows quite nicely from that. So, I mean, in general, I'm really drawn to this approach, Bob. I mean, as someone who works day to day alongside regulators, I mean, I find it pretty applicable. I think it's a really nice contribution. But I'm really interested in the kind of marginal cases. And I've got another one here. So I was talking only yesterday to a regulator who's worried about the way loans are being sold in Ireland at the moment.
So the way what is being sold?
Loans, personal loans.
Oh, loans, yeah.
Yeah. And essentially, the companies are competing on the attribute of how fast they can approve you. And the regulators obviously worried about this because we know that people don't understand what ultimately drives the financial cost of loans very well, because it's the nonlinear relationship of the term and the interest rate. And we know from research that people don't really understand that. Now, there's no hindrance here. There's no deception here. And when the firms are asked, their explanation is straightforward. They say, when we survey our consumers, the thing they care about is how quickly they get approval and how easy it is. So they've got that explanation right there. But I think we do know that what they're doing is focusing the consumer's attention on something that's going to make them money, and the consumer doesn't really realize, or do they, that this is driving the ultimate cost. So it seems to me to be a bit of a kind of marginal case, and I wonder what you think of it.
What do you think, Bruce? My inclination is it seems like it is okay. I mean, it seems as though you're doing. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it what they're doing. As long as the way in which they're presenting the information gives the normal person the ability to understand what they will have to pay over that period, that seems to me perfectly fair. You know, if they want to be hasty in getting a loan, or they feel they need it urgently, you know, I don't think we should necessarily intervene with that, as long as it's not forced on them by the lender, or presented in a subtly deceptive way.
No, I think it seems like it's a legitimate, natural desire to get approval quickly, and so you're entitled to compete on that. And as long as you're not, I mean, it's a bit like, I mean, going back to the case of the car in the Alps. I mean, you think, well, actually, lots of things about cars, and if you're sort of thinking carefully about them, on the one hand, it's nice to have a car that looks nice. On the other hand, it's also nice to have a car that's highly reliable, and it's nice to have a electric car. That it's nice to have a thing that's had a battery lasts a long time and so on. But if the advert, you only think, what's my car? What's good about my car? When I'm selling, well, my car looks beautiful, and actually it's not all that reliable. Well, it doesn't seem. I think that people are entitled to make the adverts emphasize the beauty of the car. If they wrote on, well, our car is a very reliable car, and in fact, it's a known statistical fact that they break down much more often than the boring looking ones, then that's deception. But I don't think it's deception to draw attention to, if you choose to draw attention to those dimensions of your product that are genuine dimensions that consumers want, and that you think your products have got. I don't think you're required to sort of, apart from the fact that we don't know what the correct degree of attention is anyway. So, there's no kind of, but I don't think you should have a rule that says you must give sort of equal weight to all aspects of your products.
But I mean, there's a problem though, isn't there? Is if loan companies are sort of competing on the basis of the speed of on which they issue their loans, and they use that in their marketing literature, then there's an incentive for them to make loans very, very quickly, isn't it? And then you might get pressures, from them on consumers to make decisions pretty quickly when it might not. I don't think so. It's like they might be putting pressures on consumers to make quick decisions in order to say we issue loans really quickly. That's where you might get into difficulty.
You're putting two sides to it, and when
it's an extra thing.
Suggested it was about giving you a quick offer. Yeah. Great. I mean, it may be that I've got a chance of buying a cheap car as long as I can put the money.
I am putting two sides to it, but I don't know whether in the real world you can treat these things in isolation, Bruce. That's what I'm thinking about anyway. But anyway, let's leave that one hanging. Rupert's from up because we've got to finish soon. Rupert is for one of the lead behavioural science people at Ofcom. So Rupert, do you want to come in?
Oh, that's good to know. Yes, good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I thought it was really interesting. I guess actually, I'm not really speaking as a regulator. I'm just interested in I think probably the scope of where we're worried about deception and where we're not, right? So you talked a lot about price and changes around price, haven't you? But and we've also talked about other attributes, and there is no end of kind of nonsense attributes which are kind of used to justify sales. So you like sort of shampoo the other day with like added Abyssinian incense or frankincense or something. And I was like, well, that sounds amazing. But like, it's completely, it's meaningless really, but it makes it sound more attractive. And I think this sort of taps into, I think, two worries. One is, there's no shortage of attributes where people don't really know how to evaluate them and whether they're deceptive or not. There might be some rules about out lies. It doesn't have this stuff in it, but there's a sort of implication that it's a good thing. It adds value. It does something beneficial. That's very blurry for me. And I think that sort of taps into that sort of your public explanation test. I think that's actually pretty tricky, isn't it? Because how much do you expect the public to understand, who you're talking about in terms of the public? Because what's a reasonable standard of kind of explanation for who, and over how many, what kind of range, what kind of depth of knowledge you need about a product to be able to make sort of reasonable judgments about whether this is understandable or not. I think there are so many aspects of a product and price that are shrouded, and we're not necessarily worried about that. It gets very difficult to say what's, which bits need to be publicly understandable. Where do we put the limits on that?
I think. Sorry, go on.
No, carry on. I think. No, you go on.
I think there's mixing here with the difference between the public explanation thought and the information to the customer thought. I mean, the public explanation is supposed to work. It's the level of, on the level of the regulator and the level of the media, so that you might say, the politician, that in public debate, you can say, I mean, for example, there's always been a lot of public debate about the loyalty penalty. And so the regulators can say to firms, why are you doing this? The press, the politicians can say, well, we're thinking about regulating you, why, tell us why you're doing it. And that's so there, it's not a question of how you explain to the individual consumer, really. It's more a question of how do you explain to the in the public space why you're treating your consumers the way you do. But I do think, but when it comes to the way you treat the consumer, this is just repeating myself, it just seems as though the idea that it's the job of regulators to decide what's an important aspect of the product. I mean, if you say, our product, I mean, this is, again, you always say, our product's got this special ingredient, or we'll show you. And if your statement is true, and you can make consumers think it's sort of tempted to think it's nice, I just don't see how you can have a sort of regulatory system which kind of prejudges what consumers are supposed to regard as attractive, and a duty on firms to communicate not what they think is attractive about their products, but what the regulator thinks the consumer ought to think is attractive about their products. And it seems also an obstruction to innovation, really, and because innovation is anticipating. I mean, one of my favorite quotes from Jevons, the 19th century economist, and he said something like, every manufacturer knows how important it is to anticipate the needs of his customers. And so, it's not something that you sort of can easily regulate. You're sensing that your customers want something, and sensing that this is what they'll buy is part of being an entrepreneur. And you have to be, be careful where you draw the line. What counts as deceptive and what.
We need to very quickly, Bruce.
Very quick point on that is that I think there's a danger of getting confused between make it the sort of innovation, frankincense in your shampoo or whatever, which is a unique selling point and whatever, and whether that's sensible or not, it's not for us to say, or whether what they're doing is throwing up loads of noise and emphasizing irrelevant things so that you're really reducing the salience of a number of things. So there is an issue about that, but I think that much of this is not about pressing down the salience of important things.
Okay, we need to draw a line on today's discussion because we're 2 minutes past the hour. I just say that Bruce and Bob's paper in that order as authors is in the first view section of behavioural public policy, which is accessible, freely accessible to everybody. It's an excellent paper. I do think that Bob and Bruce's line of argument is closer to my line of argument than they think.
Well, can you just quickly intercept that? I think that what we say, you in your books, you have this concept of free and fair competition. And actually, what we're doing is we're telling you what we're saying. Here's the specification. What free and you kind of have this concept. Don't really tell what it is, but we're telling.
I'm still working on it, Bob, but I'm getting there. You've influenced me. Well, I said at the beginning of this video that Bob is a sort of a natural contrarian, and I guess I am as well. So even if we agree with each other 100%, we're very likely to disagree with each other anyway. But thank you to Bob and Bruce for presenting today's paper. It was really, and the paper's great. I recommend everybody. I mean, it will be a highly used source, I think.
Thanks very much for your comments. Actually, they were very good comments and very good questions.
Yeah, and thank you for all of you for providing comments today and for attending the seminar. The next seminar will be, what are we in now? We're in April. So the next seminar is towards the end of May. I'll hopefully see most of you there, and in the meantime have a nice rest of the day today.